welcome to the Cover One Buffalo, the Greg Tompsett Sports Show. I've already messed it up in my second show ever. I was wondering how long it would take me to be able to goof up the different shows. But welcome back for our second episode. We had so much fun on our first episode. It was a great time, and tonight is going to be even more fun. We've got a lot of good stuff coming, some great guests coming on. For anyone who hasn't seen Mike Camerlengo and the 60-Second Classics, we have him on, Gier from the Rock Power Report, Rock Power Sports with some gambling segments, all kinds of fun. But tonight we're going to start out with what is everyone talking about, and what everyone's talking about is a scrappy little white kid who dunked on top of everyone in the dunk contest, Mac McClung. A guy that I won't lie, I wasn't terribly aware of before coming into the dunk contest. And it was something where when I heard they were inviting a G League player, I talked last week about some of the different events and how, since the time of Michael Jordan and Dominique Wilkins and Vince Carter and Steve Francis, it's gone downhill over time. I remember some things in recent years. One, a lot of guys, missing dunks, which is not fun to watch guys run back and forth and try things and hit it on their fifth try and be like, oh, good job eventually, I guess. I guess I remember Aaron Gordon passing it under both legs. I think I remember that one. I don't know how long ago that was, maybe 5 years ago. And it hasn't been much since then. So there was finally a little bit of buzz to be able to go and watch somebody that people were a little bit excited about, but it was hard to understand why. It was hard to understand, is this really going to be there? Is it going to be gimmicky? How are the other players going to react? What's there? And, as we kind of watch the show build up, you could hear in the announcer's voice that they were skeptical of what was going on and whether it was going to be there. And, Kenny Smith, who is awesome with Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal in the TNT, pregame shows with Ernie Johnson, he's a ton of fun to be able to be there. My mom's yelling at me for being late tonight. So I apologize, Mom. I'm really sorry. You can hear it in Kenny Smith's voice that he wasn't believing this was going to be a thing. So we'll open up here. I've got all four of his dunks loaded up, but we'll hear it as we go in. And the first dunk from our man Mac McClung is here.
I don't know these guys either. I don't know who these two guys are. Who are these two guys that is coming out here?
Yeah, McClung is the first G League player ever to participate in the slam dunk competition. He was signed this week by the 76ers to a two-way contract.
Congratulations, brother. Congratulations.
I'm worried about the guy holding the other guy. At some point, he gonna go down. Oh, that's a 50. That's a 50.
I got to see if he hit the backboard.
That's a 50.
Well, I got to see it in slow motion. I'm not refereeing the basketball. If he hit the glass.
Come on, Kenny, that's crazy.
He hit the glass.
But it was very clear that he did.
He got to hit not from my angle.
Oh, that's crazy. Oh, come on, Kenny.
Not from my angle. Hit, tapping.
So to come out and your first one is not jumping over a person, but jumping over a person sitting on somebody else's shoulders, and you jump over both of them and tap the ball off the glass and dunk it. Okay, you've got my attention here. This is serious. This is something. And you could hear it on Twitter. People started to get excited. You started to hear, people, and you could see the impact social media had on television, because as you started to hear this buzz rise, more and more people started turning it on, and more people started talking about it. And that led us into our second dunk.
Everyone standing, including us.
Oh, my God. Hey, what's up, Kenny?
And a reverse.
Hey, young fella.
And a reverse.
I have one thing to say. Welcome to the NBA. Welcome to the NBA.
Did you see Jonathan Majors, right?
Oh, my God.
His excitement?
Yeah.
This is a major movie star reacting like that.
The star of stars tonight. This guy, the Pikkit, twisted, 360.
No. Let's hear it, Kenny. Let's hear it. Go ahead and hate.
Welcome to the NBA. No more bus rides to Albuquerque.
Shotgun powered by AT&T.
So now you've got, Shaquille O'Neal, you've got, a lot of celebrities starting to post their reactions to the dunks as the night's going. Obviously, you can hear they're giving Kenny Smith a hard time. They're starting to win, he's starting to win him over, starting to really feel like the night is going. And then going into dunk 3, now he's made each one on the first attempt. So now there's some pressure. He hasn't missed one. He's got everybody pumped up going into each dunk and is starting to get more and more attention as he goes.
Alvarado. Here comes McClung.
Oh, yes, Hezzy. That's a Hezzy. That's called a Hezzy dunk. So you Hezzy in the air. Yeah, that's a ooh. And that might be an ah, too. I think that's a 49.5. That's like one shade under 50. That's one shade under 50.
Look at Giannis. The players
you better be worried. Because watch, when he catches it, the pump, then freeze it again and pump it again. He's up. That's a double pump.
Look at
freeze
the action.
Freeze it and get it back up.
That's a 50.
I tell you, the way he's won you over, Kenny, is admirable.
Ooh, look at his head. Ooh, wow. Ooh,
yes.
Mama. Yes.
So I love that reaction in the end. This little 6'1" scrappy dude is up there and his head is all the way at the rim. And now people are going crazy. Everybody online is going nuts. Everybody's turning over to watch this thing, to watch it live, going crazy. And, I start to look and I'm like, who is this kid? We actually look, he's doing great in the G League. So that's the NBA's like developmental league, like their AAA baseball version. 21 points a game, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, shooting like 48% from 3, 88% from the line, 56% from the field. Like, kind of like seems like a guy who has a chance to maybe be the end of the roster guy. He's not going to be a star, but maybe he could be able to play. As Lauren said, really incredible vertical jump. If he can do this, I'm excited. And going into the last one, he's now got everybody on their feet. He owns the night to this point, has really like captured the moment. And if anybody saw, I talked last week about Vince Carter and the way that he ended his famous dunk contest. You see a little bit of an homage at the end of this that really captured my heart. This final one is incredible. And what a way to shut it down is just an awesome, awesome end to his night.
He's got a prop here, guys. He's got a prop here.
High school jersey.
Yeah.
High school jersey.
This is the high school that he played for. That he broke the Iverson and the J.J. Redick records in the state of Virginia. Here he goes.
And he's putting on the handle. That's a wrap. It is over, ladies and gentlemen. It is a wrap. It is
Look at Trey Murphy's face. He know it.
It's a wrap.
CJ going to shake him. Good job, man. It's over.
Oh, my goodness.
It's over.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have witnessed a star being born tonight.
Let's stop it.
A star has been born tonight.
A star.
A star.
Like an NBA star?
An NBA star has been born tonight. His name will be rung throughout the country for 48 hours.
Look at this. Look at the turns now. Kenny.
Man.
Yes.
Kenny, it might have been.
Yeah,
it might have been.
It's 360 and a half.
It might have been.
Over. He said it.
Count.
It's over.
Look.
Kevin, you're the only one that's good at math here.
There's one.
360 and a half is what?
540.
Yeah.
540. That's a 540.
Look at this.
That's a 540.
That was beautiful.
Look.
That's a 540, bro.
He really tricked y'all.
Hey, you know what
he started off backwards. He started off backwards.
No, that's a 540.
So he really tricked. It's really
now you hating?
No, it's a great dunk. No, you the hater.
No,
You are the hater.
He's won me over.
No,
What are you talking about? I'm not hating no more.
I had him pick to win with Reggie. Like you're the hater.
I gotta get a selfie.
I gotta get. We want him over. Draymond, we want him over. Dominic Wilkins.
I like it. Prove the haters wrong.
Yes.
Look at him standing up now.
That's right.
Prove the haters wrong. Yes, sir.
So to be able to capture everyone's attention like that, to win people over in that way, one of the biggest takeaways, I was talking with our awesome producer, Chris, pre-show as we were getting ready. The biggest takeaway from this is now there's comments coming out of Zion Williamson talking about maybe he needs to come challenge Mac McClung next year for his dunk contest. Ja Morant making comments about wanting to do the dunk contest. If this little scrappy kid who was playing for the Delaware Bluecoats, which is the G League affiliate for the 76ers, if he can get the star players in the NBA to come back to the dunk contest, this kid's worth his weight in gold to the NBA. That would be unbelievable to be able to pull that kind of star power back in to where he is, because that was incredible. It was a ton of fun. But if his lasting impact is he actually recharges some energy and some of the actual name power back into the NBA slam dunk contest, that's fun, and that would have a lot of excitement. So I thought that was really fun. It really was what people were talking about this week. That's what we like to be able to start our shows off with each week, to be able to go through, as Michael is officially doing here. I did delay tonight's show waiting for the Sabres game. I knew a lot of people were excited. As of tonight, the Buffalo Sabres are officially in a playoff spot with a win over the Florida Panthers after last night's overtime win against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And that was the name of our show tonight, was what are these other sports? Now that football's done, what do we do? And trying to lean into the All-Star game in the NBA and this playoff push, the Sabres and the excitement in the NHL. And next week, we're going to have some really exciting folks on. You guys know Anthony and Chad DeDominicis from Expected Buffalo, two of the smartest hockey people that I know, who have helped me a lot as I try to learn more about the game. They're going to be coming on with us next week, talking about the trade deadline and what to expect down the stretch in the NHL season with the Buffalo Sabres. So really excited to have Chad and Anthony on next week. But tonight, our special guests coming on the show, one of them, you know, alive and well. He's a man that I've won back-to-back stake bets from after going on his show and having wagers with to have a wonderful dinner on his behalf at the Buffalo Chop House. You know him as Drew Gier. I like to refer to him as...
Please welcome Drunk Uncle.
Everyone's favorite drunk uncle. And for some people who may not be aware, our other guest here, you're going to see his website in our show description here. Mike Camerlengo is absolutely hilarious. He has invented his website called 60 Second Classics. 60 Second Classics is his incredibly comical take on some of our favorite movies through the 80s, 90s, all the way through today. He will do a 60-second rundown in a very, very comical version of it, of many of our favorite movies. Well, please check out the link in the show description. It's fantastic. But he also does reactions to famous football plays as they happen. So I thought before we dive into the sports movies, I want to give you guys one of those clips with a famous play you saw at the end of this season for Josh Allen. And this is Mike Camerlengo in his 60-second classic style describing one of those plays.
Josh Allen touchdown pass. So it's 3rd and goal, and Pats fans are hoping for a stop so they can finally break the seal, because it's 25 degrees out and they've been funneling natty ice in the parking lot since 4 p.m. The Bills motion to the right, and Allen quickly realizes the Pats are running a stunt known as the Tums package, which means all the pressure is right up the gut. He rolls to the right looking downfield, but he's getting spied on like an Airbnb house guest, with number 30 locking in. And honestly, if this were geometry class, he'd get a B+ for that sweet ass angle. Shout out to Mr. Palmero, an isosceles triangle legend. But Allen is able to fight him off, and that's because Josh Allen is like a haunted house. If you go high, you will regret it. Now, if we pause the tape right here, it doesn't look like anyone on the Bills is open. In fact, if you throw this pass, it's probably going to be a pick. And then everyone's going to be like, hey, remember when you threw the ball to 17 people on the other team? Yeah, that was fun. But Josh Allen has that watch this shit energy. Great for belly flops, kick flips, and cashing forged checks. He doesn't care that he's deep in the hole, and he goes airborne like a shortstop throwing out a pitcher wearing a starter jacket. And look who it is. Gabe Davis finds the opening, comes to the ball, catches it with his hands. Touchdown. Incredible play all around.
So as you can see, Mike is hysterical. He's a ton of fun. We had a great time with him tonight. And without further ado, here is our interview for tonight with our top 5 sports movies. All right. And now for tonight's primary segment, our top 5 sports movies. I am joined by someone many of you know, Drew Gier of Rock Power Report. Drew, how we doing?
Oh, we're doing good. You know, we do things. Just kind of laying low, hanging out. You can't podcast without a beverage. Come on.
Obviously, you have to be properly lubricated. And another gentleman that some of you will recognize, but many of you will recognize the voice of as we get going tonight, our man Mike Camerlengo. Mike, how we doing?
Well, I'm so boring. I have water right here. I almost always bring a beer. I messed up.
Sorry.
Thanks for having me, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it. For anyone who hasn't had the pleasure, we'll be linking some of Mike's work. You'll know him from his 60-second classics and a lot of really fun breakdowns of some of the films we're going to be touching on tonight, but many others that we're going to be going through and having a good time going through. But one of the fun of sports fanhood is debating, and there's always, it was Manning versus Brady, or Emmett versus Barry Sanders, or now Jordan versus LeBron. And it doesn't always just have to be the players. We thought that a fun way to go through this is to talk about our favorite sports movies, and not necessarily what the best movies are. We're not debating what the greatest cinematic achievement is, but what are the ones we enjoy the most? What are the ones that we want to watch again, that we see ourselves every time you're flipping around and it comes up on TBS or TNT, like, I can't turn it. It's coming up to the training montage now. I got to finish it. So those are the ones that we're going to be focusing on tonight, and hopefully we can have a little fun poking at the favorites of some of each other, and also explaining why we enjoy them so much. So without further ado, we're going to bring up some of our best and favorite sports movies. Even our lead in here, Bull Durham, didn't make the list. So you can tell what a competitive list this is between the five of us, and no one's seen everyone else's list. So these will be real reactions to everything we go through. And it really opens up with our honorable mentions. Tell you, these are the kind of movies that many people would select as their greatest sports movies ever, with the honorable mention. And I know one that you think maybe gets a little too hard of a time, Mike. What are your thoughts on Rudy and why it was needed to be mentioned but didn't quite break into your top five?
I like Rudy. Everyone always shits on it. Can I say shits on it? That people always shit on it.
Yeah.
Well, people always love it, or people. The problem is people go too hard one way or the other. But I think it's a good movie. I think people connect it obviously with college football, so people filter it through whether they like Notre Dame or not. So if you hate Notre Dame, you're like, they were on my TV all the time. Why are they on NBC? Go away. You're like, Rudy's not even real. Who cares? That story sucks. But if you like Notre Dame, you're like, yeah, Fighting Irish, shout out. But me, I'm just an idiot who grew up in Massachusetts. I don't have any college football connections. I'm like, yeah, that's a great movie to watch in the fall. It's got a nice score. The Underdog, Vince Vaughn's in it. I get a little choked up a little bit. So I think it's a good movie.
Drew, I can see you shaking your head. So is that because of your deep-seated love for Notre Dame?
Notre Dame is the university that's gotten more credit for doing the least out of any college football team I've known in my lifetime. So it makes me a little sick that people love this movie. Like, it bothers me deeply because I look around and I go, there's generations of college football fans who have been indoctrinated into this Notre Dame nonsense. It's almost like being a Bills fan. It's nothing but heartbreak, nothing but tragedy, year over year over year. Your team's not good. You're never going to be good. Like, that's the feeling you get if you sit too close to a Notre Dame fan. So it's crazy to me that, like, if you want to talk about pop culture, when's the last time Notre Dame won a championship? Like, that's not what they're not popular for anything but this stupid movie. And so I don't know. It just irritates me.
I think that's why I like it, because it could have been University of Iowa and I would have felt the same way. But I hear you. If you're looking at a team that's never won or in a long, long time, and everyone's like, Notre Dame's awesome, right, Rudy? And you're like, shut your face.
That's like saying, oh, I'm a huge fan of Philadelphia. Why? Because of Rocky. What?
Yeah, when the players come in and lay the jerseys on the desk and tell the coach that they're giving up their spot for Rudy, it still tugs at my heartstrings. But it didn't make the list. So same thing for me. Foxcatcher, awesome movie, fantastic, crazy, acting performances in there. I think Hoop Dreams is one of the best sports movies ever. The way that it captured that world of trying to make it into there, but I don't have a burning passion to see either of them again. I think they were good movies, and I really enjoyed them, but I don't need to go out of my way to watch them again. And I felt the same about The Wrestler. I thought it was an awesome performance. Why did you have it as one you needed to put on your honorable mention?
I needed to have it as an honorable. Well, first and foremost, it's an epic film. Wrestling is not a sport. That's why it's an honorable mention right out of the gate. And if you're one of the people who's watching this at home right now, it is not a sport. And if you call it that, I get I'm visibly upset. It'll never be. You can call it a soap opera with simulated violence. You can call it all kinds of things. Sports entertainment, I think, is the term they throw around.
An amazing athletic performance.
Yes, an amazing display of athletic skill. It is not a sport, and if you call like, it makes me sick when I hear that. So, with that said, how can you not love Mickey Rourke's story and just the way, like, he's a tragic character. Out of all these movies we're going to talk about, like, there's some tragic characters woven into him. Mickey Rourke is the one that I think I see, and my heart actually, my cold black heart goes out to a little bit. And then at the end, like, the ending of that movie is the perfect ending because you don't know. Did he land it? And did he make his triumphant return and he finally came back and did the Ram Jam? Did he die? And that's why it goes black. And you're just left there kind of conflicted at the end of the movie, and kind of it gets you emotionally. And that's what I think it is.
I love it. I love it. So let's break into our rankings. We'll go through here. Some of them were loosely ranked. Some of them are more, hard seated, and we'll lead right off. Drew, explain why For the Love of the Game is tolerable to you when Kelly Preston ruins the entire movie.
Okay. How do you not love the story, right? You've got this guy who, it starts off literally one of the lowest moments of his entire life. He's a guy who knows he's being put out to pasture. So instead of seeing like, hey, we got to live his glory years and now you're watching this guy be put out, instead you're opening with what is probably one of the hardest moments of this guy's entire life, when he realizes that the chick's not coming. She's not. And then he goes out there and takes the mound. And for the opening part of the movie, it has all the classic film elements. It's got, man versus himself when he's out there just kind of pitching and he's talking himself through it and he's reliving all the mistakes. And then, man versus man to a certain degree when he realizes, like, oh no, like, these guys are out here, he's trying to pitch his way past the teeth of the Yankees roster. And then at the end, when his body actually starts to fail him because he's so old, and it becomes man versus nature. And he's just like, look, I don't physically think I got it, but we're going to try. We're going to try to get this thing into the garage because now I've got all these guys pulling for me. I got to dig deep. I mean, that's what sports films are supposed to be about, right? You tune in to see, you want to see something spectacular, something special. It's why we watch sports. This movie was a guy fighting tooth and nail to try to give everyone that and give himself that, really.
And it has Kevin Costner, which is how you qualify for a sports movie.
And John C. Reilly. Look at that right there.
So Mike, I asked Greg this question because I noticed that Bull Durham did not make the cut. Here's a question. How many baseball movies does Kevin Costner get to be cast in? Like, I think there's a max, isn't there?
Baseball, and I feel like because he's a guy who feels like an aging star, even when he was younger. You're like, he's probably like 35, and they're like, you're over the hill. Well, that is over the hill, I guess, in sports. But you're like, you're the aging star. Like, you're the guy or Tin Cup. I mean, he's a golfer. He's that guy who's like, he can play an athlete, but like a baseball player. He's not shooting threes. He's not, but he has that like, I got to ice my knees thing, and he plays it well.
You literally.
I will say, Drew, it was a little more sentimental than I expected from you. This one was a little more tugging at the heartstrings than I expected from your ranking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not known for that. Anybody who's listening to this knows I'm probably one of the, I mean, we are the pettiest Bills podcast. That's our brand, and we wear it well. But this movie like gets me choked up because you see him and he's out there fighting his way through it, and it's like we all kind of know a little bit of that. And like honestly, that's what you watch great sporting events for, is to see somebody do something special. Even if it does put them in harm's way, or it's that they're fighting it and you're watching them. You're watching a quarterback who's just been beat up in the pocket all day, but he's going to try to will his team to a fourth quarter comeback. That's that special thing about sports that you tune in for. This movie gives that to you.
Yeah. I wonder if I'd relate to this movie. I saw it when I was younger. Maybe I was like 12. And I think I saw it once, but I think now that my knees are starting to go away, and I feel like if I'd be like, yeah, man, like I would relate to it more. I feel like I'd probably cry if I watch this movie now.
Yeah, it reaches.
I just like that you did a really good job of just like, I wish Kevin Costner was here to hear you call him grizzled. You were like, oh, yeah, he's just, even as a young man, he looked old as hell.
He was like, oh, speaking of grizzled, there we go.
Yeah. Going back, Mike, this is one. It's one that I don't know how well it stands up over time, but it was so ridiculous at the time that you can't get that much more ridiculous coming into now. Teen Wolf is a sneaky one. First, explain why you qualify it as a sports movie.
Well, there's a lot of basketball scenes.
Yeah.
Well, not too many. There's actually only like 3 or 4 basketball scenes.
I saw somebody make the case that Big Lebowski is a sports movie because of the bowling, and there was a couple of like,
I mean, I have one on this list that you may not consider a sports movie, but it's kind of. Teen Wolf, I mean, some of these movies on my list especially, but when you like a movie when you're younger, it's hard as an adult to go back and judge it like fairly. Like, I just have so much love and nostalgia for this movie that I'm like, oh, this is the best part. This is when fucking
you're gonna
the hoop. Yeah,
you're gonna like my top 2 when they come up.
So to show a random adult Teen Wolf, they would probably be like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
But I just love it. Like it's the basketball. They have a couple funny basketball scenes. There's an 8-minute montage where they show the same play 4 times, and that's the kind of movie it is. He turns into a wolf. He becomes good at basketball. He can act in the school play. He's surfing on top of a van. The wolf is giving him confidence. He could do it all along, as shown at the end of the movie when he shows up as a human, which if I was his teammate, I'd be real pissed. I'd be like, turn back into the wolf.
Hey,
but anyway,
the guy.
Yeah, where's the other guy? But yeah, it's a stupid movie. Teen Wolf 2 is the worst movie ever made, but Teen Wolf, something about it I just like. I've seen it like 20 times.
And that's what really stands up for the rankings here, is like, which ones are you going to fight for? Because every time it comes on, you can't turn it off. That's where
of my list, this is probably the most like guilty pleasure. Like, you can't really, it's not like a good movie, but it is, in my opinion.
Yeah. So my first one on the list here is Happy Gilmore, in the very same sense. Like, no one's going to argue that this is some great cinematic achievement, but the one-liners, just knowing that, like, ooh, Happy learned how to putt, like, just having those moments where it's going through, and Shooter McGavin is such a like fun villain. Like, it's not too far over the line, but he plays such a hateable character that it makes it more entertaining, and it's so easy to root for. And the same age when it's coming out is when I around the same age of watching it, and those kind of moments where you can Adam Sandler was always so relatable in those things. It's one that for me is a guilty one to go back and just have fun watching.
Are Adam Sandler movies good, or are they just quotable? Like, I don't think that's an unfair question, because I tried watching this movie the other day and it does not hold up well.
Oh, yeah. There has to be, I think Mike touched that. You have to have that tie to it to be able to connect. That there's some things that don't hold up as well, but it still brings me that. There's one on Mike's list that definitely doesn't hold up the way that it used to, but it doesn't mean I don't want to watch it.
Oh, and it's not Teen Wolf is another one.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, here, let's see what we get to next here. This one you both had on your list for White Men Can't Jump. This was on both of your lists, so I'll let you guys take the floor. We'll start with Drew.
Well, for me, it's one of those things where you're talking about sports as a canvas to tell a broader story about a person. It's a human interest story butted up against a sporting event and like a specific game. And it's one of those movies that has so many moments in it that are memorable. The guy gets beat and he wants to run it back, but he doesn't have any money. So he goes and robs the corner store to come back with cash in order to put, like, if you tried putting that, I almost compare some of the things in this film to like some of the Mel Brooks movies. You can't make this film now in 2023. You couldn't do it. You'd get thrown out. They would throw you out of Hollywood for even pitching something like this. And so in that way, it is kind of a classic film in the sense that you could never do this again. And I like the fact that it doesn't resolve the way so many other movies might tell you, like a sports movie with these characters has to have a happy ending.
Here's the life lesson for you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, they did make White Men Can't Jump too, so I'll be interested to see what happens with that. But to your point, I mean, they finally, he finally gets that $5,000 or whatever they win in that tournament, and what does he do right away? He's pisses away his share trying to dunk the ball. And I remember even when I was younger, I was going like, no, like, what are you doing? I couldn't believe it. And every time I watch it, I'm yelling at him, like, don't just go home with the money you won. What are you doing? And they're like, yeah, this guy is a maniac. Like, he has a problem. But yeah, go ahead.
No, Mike, you were on a roll. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I just the basketball in this movie is well done. You don't see a lot of movies about like street ball or 2-on-2 or just pickup basketball in general. So
other than Wesley Snipes dribbling to his shoulder, that's the only.
Yeah, he goes up high. He's doing this. And Billy Hoyle's got a pretty funny jumper too, kind of over to the side. But yeah, I mean, it's just the dialogue's great in this movie. There's great back and forth. There's like a friendship, but a rivalry, and there's so many like twists and turns about, you know, how Billy's trying to get money because the Stuckey brothers are after him, but it's tied throughout basketball, and I just think the way the basketball is shot is really well done. The music's great.
The playground hustle approach to it is super real. Like that's definitely what you would expect to see in that real scenario.
And there's a lot of slow motion in the basketball scenes, which could be, if done incorrectly, it could be cheesy as hell. But for whatever reason, it really works in this movie. Like the ball bouncing up on top of the rim a couple times, and the reactions falling through the chain net, just everything.
The basketball action. I've watched movies that they spent a lot more money producing, a ton more money in regards to basketball games that weren't as well shot as this one. And I think the thing that makes this film stick with you is the fact that you can kind of, you know, as you walk away and you think about your own life, you look at this movie and you go, it didn't have the happy ending, but why? Because this guy kept doing the thing that we're all told throughout our entire lives. Like, you have the thing, you've got the car in the garage, don't back it back out again. Take what you have and walk away. And he's always chasing the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And so it's just this recurring theme that then you kind of walk away from. And as you think about the film, you look at your life and you go, no, I see that. No, that's real. That's an actual thing that's happened to me. Oh, yeah. Like I know a scenario or five. I know a scenario or five where I could have learned a lesson from this.
So my sentimental heartstrings one is A League of Their Own. I love this movie. Obviously, like Hanks and there's no crying in baseball and the different things, but the relationship with the sisters and going through and that approach. This is my one that kind of tugs at my heartstrings, that I love A League of Their Own. I think it's a really well told story, like the needing the girls during the war because they just need to fill the time and the space in baseball. But then the guys are coming back like, all right, we don't need you anymore. But we dedicated ourselves to this. We did this, and seeing all of that finish out was really cool in the way that it was sold. It's one that I definitely can't turn it off when it comes on. It's not just a guilty pleasure. Like this one, is probably the best movie of the ones that I picked out. But it's one that tugs at my heartstrings, and I have to watch it every time.
Where do you stand on the does Dottie drop the ball at the end on purpose?
Absolutely.
On purpose, she does.
She could have held it. She would have been out. She knew that Dot needed it more than she did, and that she needed that moment to be the hero. She absolutely dropped the ball.
Interesting. Can I tell you both that I've never survived? Like I've never made it through this movie in one sitting. I try and I fall asleep every single time.
All right, you got to try one more for me. You got to try one more time for me, just to see.
I mean, usually I've got a 4-strike rule. By the fourth one, if I don't make it, you're just a bad movie. Sorry, it's not my fault. Hey, don't blame me. It's like I say about Bruce Springsteen. You don't get to have a catalog of 300 songs and have me say 5 of them are okay. The problem's you. It's not me. It's the same thing with these kind of movies. If I give you 4 opportunities and you can't captivate me, guess what? It's your fault, not mine.
All right.
I'm not uncultured swine. It's you.
You just upset so many Bruce Springsteen fans. I'm so excited to hear the comment. So we're having a good time here. As producer Lauren, warned us, we probably needed the Oscars music or the hook to come play us off stage. As we're going, we had a little bit too much fun, so we worked in a little bit of a break here to be able to go in, because it's important for you to remember that the Greg Tompsett Sports Show is a fantastic opportunity for you to be able to potentially advertise. And if you don't believe me, talk to this prominent business person. Like, she could even park my yacht there. That's ridiculous. Oh, hello. Fancy meeting you here, prominent business owner. I was just speaking with another prominent business owner friend of mine about advertising with the Greg Tompsett Sports Show. It's so quite something to take a look at the demographics and the people that they touch across their vast, vast reach on all social media platforms. Hold on just a moment. I'm getting a call from another one of my prominent business owner friends. Why, yes, we were just talking about advertising with the Greg Tompsett Sports Show. I know. I'm going to capitalize immediately. Thank you. All right. I hope you take this opportunity to hurry. I have some bonds to diversify. Thank you for your time. So I still, as Aaron likes to talk about, no one makes me laugh harder than me. So it's still true, Aaron. So having fun. We're going to go back to the second half of the top 5 sports movies with Drew Gier and Mike Camerlengo right here.
I know you got Springsteen, Happy Gilmore, and A League of Their Own.
And A League of Their Own.
All of them.
So I'll let you have this one, Drew. I would have put Remember the Titans in my list. I got to cheat. I got to see both of your guys' lists. This one is one that's, I will say, the exception in the Disney sports movie catalog. I don't think Disney does sports movies all that well. There's a lot of
Airbud rules.
There's a lot of whiffs in their catalog. This one is just right. Obviously, it's hard to mess up when you have Denzel Washington. Like, he's kind of a cheat code there that, you know, it's hard to mess up when you have Denzel Washington. But Remember the Titans is a favorite of mine as well.
There's been some bad films made where they snuck Denzel Washington in, like, late in his career, that don't get roasted nearly as hard as they need to. But they were deemed mediocre films because he was involved. This film is just, it has everything, right? It's got, you get to
real life situations that you can tie to in history.
Not only that, but I think that the film did such a good job capturing the actual sentiment of the moment. I think that's probably the biggest thing is, when the assistant coach, I don't know why, blame Miller Lite. I can't think of his name now. It's escaping me, but he has to go across and basically have it out with the officials. And he's like, look, I'll throw away my entire career over this. You're going to call a fair game. It took people like that in order to get the kind of traction that this whole movement needed. And so it was really cool the way they shot it, the way it was written, the way it was directed, the characters, and the way, Jerry Bertram, and just all of it, the tragedy, the humor. It is one of the better written sports movies I've ever seen in my entire life.
And an amazing soundtrack, which always helps.
Yes.
All right. As we continue along here, Mike.
So this is what
defend why the Karate Kid is a sports movie. No.
That's one where I was like, is this a sports movie?
Well,
it's sports adjacent.
The seminal scene is a sports.
It's karate.
Scene. So that part is legit.
Mike, I'll give you this. Karate is more a sport than wrestling will ever be. And so for that reason alone, I give it a pass.
Yeah, it's sports-ish. This is a sports-ish movie. This is a movie that, talk about a good soundtrack. I mean, Cruel Summer, when Daniel LaRusso is just riding his bike into town, showing up to school, Elizabeth Shue's playing soccer. Again, I saw this as a young child, a young boy hitting adolescence, saying, yes, I want to knee juggle with Elizabeth Shue. I want to try to fight a bunch of bad blondes on dirt bikes, So this just had it all. And I do really think it's a good movie. I mean, they obviously made a couple sequels that are iffy. And then Cobra Kai, season 1 of Cobra Kai was great.
Season 1 of Cobra Kai was excellent.
Because it's really tied into the movie. And then it does its own thing, which was great, but it's not for me. So, yeah, I mean, look, it's got the story. It's the new kid in town. He's trying to find his way. Oh, look, the neighborhood repair guy or whatever he's called, the maintenance man, he also knows karate and he can teach me how to fight off my bullies. And I'm also learning about myself at the same time. So it's a coming of age story and it's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. Where do you fall on now rewatching it as an adult? And obviously the popular internet approach is Daniel was actually the villain of this movie.
Oh, that's just one of the funnier internet videos I've ever seen. But I don't think he's the villain. And I know in Cobra Kai, they make his character more complicated. But just in the first movie, he's a little bit of a hothead. He does some stuff where maybe he could have de-escalated situations. Like, on
like,
the beach.
like when he went out of his way, the kids had already left him alone, and he went out of his way to spray a hose on a couple kids just trying to puff a joint in the bathroom.
Yeah, that was really taking it up a notch. And right there, you really got to have a plan. He didn't have a plan. His plan was to run away. He's lucky Mr. Miyagi was there, and he's running away.
We all just gloss over the felonies that took place here. An adult assaulting minors. We all just gloss over the multiple felonies that take place throughout the course of this movie.
Yeah, that would have been frowned upon in.
Although it was the 80s, so really,
there were no rules in the 80s.
I don't know. Maybe I think Johnny's.
Look at the hair. Look at the hair. There was no rules back then.
I feel like Johnny's parents or somebody would have tried to press charges.
Yeah, I have a strong feeling that if an aging immigrant beat up a bunch of young blonde individuals, that their parents that would have been handled slightly differently in current society.
Well, not in this movie. They just said, "We'll see you at the karate tournament.
We will settle it on the mat."
Yeah.
All right. Moving forward here, Caddyshack. It's odd. I have two golf movies and 2 baseball movies, and they're distant down my list of favorite sports. But I love Caddyshack. It's one of my favorite comedies. It's one of my favorite movies. Again, the quotable elements of it, and there's a lot of ridiculous different parts of it that don't have any relevance other than just squeezing in some jokes that they're trying to figure out a way to make them fit. But it's also one that I can't turn off whenever it comes up.
This is one where I just feel like I think I've seen it, but I just don't. I got to go back and watch it again. I know it's one of the all-time sports movies. I know people can quote it like crazy. Like my dad, I'm sure knows every quote, but I'm like, I think I just missed it. I missed it.
Yeah.
I can vividly remember. So you got to think about it through this lens. I'm the kid who, growing up, my mom would drop me off at my grandparents' house to be babysat by my uncle and grandfather, who would watch the Friars Club roasts on tape. Don Rickles was a favorite of mine when I was 7 or 8.
Yeah, that's probably not appropriate for a 7 or 8 year old.
No, the jokes I told in school that got phone calls home, it was a big deal, and you can see it now, knowing who I am now as an adult, Greg. It all
it makes total sense. Yeah, it makes total sense.
So this movie, I can vividly remember where we were. I was sitting on my parents' couch, my dad to my left, my mom to my right, my brother over here on the floor. We're watching Caddyshack. I want to say I was either 8 or 9, and there was 2 moments. There was the moment where the main character is sleeping with the other guy's daughter, and that just set the whole living room on fire. My dad has to pause the movie, has to wrangle me and my brother, and it's like a fire broke out. And then there's the very end, and I happen to be taking a sip out of a can of pop, and here comes Rodney Dangerfield, and he goes, "Hey everybody, we're all gonna get laid." And when he said laid, I did a literal spit take all over my father, all over him. And it's seared in my memory forever because the frustration on his face and just him knowing this is my fault. I did this. I can't even be mad.
I brought this on myself. All right. So we'll go into our top 2. This is a top 2 from everybody. This was another one, Mike, I easily could have put on my list. It's not a good movie. It's not a great cinematic achievement, but it's so fun. It's just so the training montage,
there's 2 back to back. They're back to back. I got a Rocky 3 here behind me, so I almost didn't put this on because I was like Rocky 4, but then I really tapped into my brain. I said, Mike, how many times have you seen Rocky 4? How many times? This, I'm not kidding. I've seen this movie 50 times. I agree with you. It's not very good. It's training montages, which are amazing. The fight is pretty good, but the first leading up to it is just Rocky's the worst corner man in history. He lets Apollo just get wrecked. He doesn't throw in the towel, which of course sets up the rest of the story. But
literally let your best friend get beat to death just by hesitating.
And then he goes, I don't know who's making this guy's deals. He doesn't have an agent or manager or anything. He goes to Russia,
world champion,
for free.
Yeah,
he fights for
money
free, and he gets so much brain damage because he takes so many punches. One time I was pretty buzzed, and it came on TV, and I tried to count. And to my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I counted he got hit 82 times in the first round. Now, is that, some punches probably missed, but I tried my best, and he just gets wrecked. He gets wrecked, and it's crazy that the referee going into this fight, Drago just killed a guy on national TV, and his next fight, he demolishes this guy, and this guy should stop. He should stop the fight right away.
Yeah.
But it's Russia.
He almost gets
in
That's
Russia.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
It's Russia. So my thing is the soundtrack to this film, right? Like obviously Vince DiCola does a lot of like fills and a lot of like background thematic music. Hearts on Fire.
Yeah.
Living in America.
Yep.
No Easy Way Out. Burning Heart. Like Kenny Loggins is on this thing. This is probably my second favorite film soundtrack next to Top Gun. Top Gun is number one. This one's a hard number 2. And the music, to your point, there's so many montages. Him driving angrily, him running around through the mountains. For some reason, a helicopter's there. Like, I don't understand that, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't even make sense.
I can hear it. He's cutting the thing. I can feel it. It's in my bones, man.
I remember when upside down doing sit-ups. Lifting
he's
the
ripped. He's fucking
trailer.
ripped in this.
Oh, dude, this is peak
ripped.
Stallone. Peak.
Can you imagine? Okay. So all of us here have at one point in time tried to get like in shape. Like, do you have any idea?
The soundtrack.
Well, exactly. It's on like at least half that soundtrack is on my workout playlist. Do you know how grueling it must have been to try to get those abs?
Oh. When Drago and Rocky both take off their robes, I gasped. I went, oh man, these guys are cut, dude.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, that guy has a 6-pack. It's like, I don't know. Looks like
all the obliques.
This was hand drawn. It was in a Marvel comic book.
Yeah.
Leonardo da Vinci.
Series of ice trays. I don't know. It's just like,
well, and then the ending where just all of Russia decides they're suddenly on Rocky's side.
Yes,
like,
they're
come
gonna
on.
start rooting for
they turn so fast.
Realistically, everyone gets shoved in the back of a van and like that van gets set on fire.
They turn on him quickly too, like in like the 8th round. Like they should still be rooting Drago on because it's still a tight match.
Yeah,
like, don't they want Drago to win?
He only just got cut for the first time. Like,
yeah, and they're like, okay, you're right. We want the other guy. Not loyal,
right.
Not loyal. But through all that, outstanding movie.
Absolutely,
a great movie.
So Drew, you're number 2. Again,
yeah.
Any Given Sunday. I have to ask: is this the version with the eyeball on the field, or the version without the eyeball on the field?
Absolutely, eyeball on the field. If you're not seeing that, you're not getting the full experience. But I think the thing that makes this movie great, first of all, we talked about how White Men Can't Jump and about how the action, like the football action, was shot really well.
Yeah,
I've watched a lot of football movies that try to incorporate football action who get it wrong or just make it sloppy. And you're like, I've played football. That's not how that, like the physics of that play or that thing don't work. This used a lot of quick cuts and a lot of stuff so you still got the intensity of like you're watching a football game, but it kept your attention more so. And I think it looked less sloppy than it probably could have if they had shot it another way.
Yeah. I think also having like Lawrence Taylor in the movie and actors who had like legitimate athletic ability who could pull it off, bringing back Latimer from the program, which almost made my list. The program was right there to make my list. I thought that was a good way to do it. And, obviously the same idea of adding Denzel, having Pacino obviously adds a level of gravitas to anything.
And think about the character, Tony D'Amato. Again, if we're talking about tragic characters in sports, here's a guy at the end of his rope. He's washed up. His prostitutes don't actually like him all that much. Like everything stinks for this guy. He's still getting drunk with the old owner's wife, who is like, he's realizing like, she's my age. Oh my God, that caricature behind the bar is me. And he's looking around and he says, oh my God, I caught lightning in a bottle here. And I just got to see. I got to see if I can make something happen here to prove to everybody I'm not the wash up and the loser that they think I am.
And it's Jesse Spano only cost $5,000 a night.
I was going to say, it was Jesse Spano, right? Yeah.
It was.
And there's cool uniforms in this movie.
Yes,
and the field, and there's some really cool like logo, like the field is like so that stuff it's not
teams
doesn't
mess
make it a
that
good
up
movie,
all the time.
but it like
I was going to
enhances
say that's
the
one of the
movie.
worst parts of football movies where they can't get licensing from actual
Right.
football teams. Like everybody loves the movie The Replacements. I'm sorry, but like I don't know, the uniforms and it just
It's a
doesn't
little
do
cheesy.
it for me.
They pull
Yeah,
it
it
off
is
in
cheesy.
this one. Oliver Stone pulls it off in this one.
And I think that they gave it enough edge. That's the other thing I like about it is that they underscored enough about, because there's a lot of football movies and a lot of sports movies in general. You want to see your athletes as the Kevin Costner baseball players and the goofy guys from some of these other comedy movies that exist. Realistically, football players are a wild bunch because they play a game that's probably best categorized as property acquisition through violence. Like that's what they do. So it takes a wild human being to go strap on a helmet and pads and go out there and play that game. And it kind of captivates how like these guys are there. They can be good teammates and they can be there for each other. And at the same time, they're all at these wild parties doing all kinds of unspeakable stuff. And you go, no, because they are wild people and it's what makes them them. And every character has an angle too. I think they did a good way of fleshing out every character's kind of story arc within an hour and 15-minute film.
Yeah. So mine is purely the nostalgia, pulling from it. I find excuses to interject the annexation of Puerto Rico into multiple conversations on a regular basis. I love the Little Giants. I think that you even have, right behind Mike, you got the Polk High jersey.
Yeah.
So, you're pulling, it's Ted Bundy against the, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And you're just having guys that you saw in different areas. They bring back a bunch of NFL players. You have the full thing of like the tough girl who wants to play and the blonde haired quarterback, and you got the pipsqueak little guy who the mom won't let him play. And it just checked every single box of all the kinds of kids that you grew up with. And then like, oh, the really good team that takes everything seriously versus the ragtag team just having fun. It's certainly one I connected with as a kid, and that, being able to watch this, it's always one I can rewatch all the time and still enjoy just as much.
Yeah, they got the good speech in this too. Same with Any Given Sunday, obviously has that amazing speech. But the Little Giants, one time speech, which is the mark of a good sports movie if there's like a great speech in it. So
yeah. And I will say none of us picked Miracle, but the Miracle speech is one that's all
the Miracle speech hits all the right notes. This movie, I liked it as a little kid, and then I kind of stopped watching it as I got older. Mostly because I have flashbacks to my own experience with football. Growing up in Podunk, North Collins, Little Loop football, we had a girl named Jamie Anthalsner who was our defensive. She was our nose tackle. And Jamie Anthalsner, like she wasn't like, when you think about girls who would play football, she wasn't stocky. She was just, as I want to say, like we were probably only in 4th, 5th, 6th grade. She towered over it. She was already almost 6 feet tall. And she would, and our team would get made fun of. We weren't very good, but then guys would be cracking jokes during warmups. Oh, you're the team with the girl. And I'd be like, guys, don't say that too loud. Stop it. Because not only is she going to take it out on you, she's going to take it out on us. Stop it. Knock it off. And sure enough, she'd go out there and just be ragdolling people. I remember she face masked a kid, and the father started yelling at her and the referee to call a penalty, and she heckled the father. And was just like, she's like, are you crying because your son got beat up by a girl? And I was like, guy, just go back and sit down.
Oh, yeah, that's serious when you're heckling a grown man.
PTSD.
Yeah, I respect it. All right, now for our number ones here. Obviously a great choice. Tons of one-liners, tons of famous ones. Are you saying Jesus Christ can't hit a curveball? Drew, speak about Major League.
So Major League, most people are probably shocked because they know that on Twitter I go out of my way to make fun of the sport of baseball. They're like, why do you have 2 baseball movies? I don't know. Apparently baseball on film is more interesting than baseball in real life. That's all I got for you. It's a terrible watch. I refuse to hear otherwise. But this movie has so much comedy to it. It's a comedy film based around baseball with all these memorable characters, and it's highly quotable. And realistically, it's so farcical and it's just kind of in its nature that you don't have to take it seriously.
Well,
So
but
when
there's
you want
also
to
the
have
plausible element of, well, I could actually
Yes.
see the owner of the Cleveland Indians wanting the team to be so bad that they could move it. That's possible.
Well, not only that, but some of those notes, like, first of all, it's a Rust Belt kind of a story. This is the kind of thing you would expect to happen here in the Rust Belt. Also, I mean, there's a lot of people who accuse me of being one of them, but think about the fans who early on throughout the movie are sitting in the seats. That's been me as a Bills season ticket holder for the better part of the last 11 years. You know, I bought in right after the Bills beat the Patriots in 11. Nothing but heartbreak.
Nothing good happened for a long time.
I've been to Bills Browns games where literally there were so few people got drunk and just laid down in the bleachers and went to sleep. And the ushers didn't move them because they were like, there's no one here. There's no one here for them to be bothering. So I've been in those shoes, and it's just, I don't know. It's a fun movie, highly relatable. Lou Brown is the best, and I'll go to my grave, best film coach of all time.
Well, I got a guy on the other line talking about a set of white wall tires. I'll have to get back to you.
I can still hear him. Anytime I see a picture of him, I can just hear him going, darn. Just like, the mustache. Just
The mustache is so magnificent. All right, Mike, you're number one here. Varsity Blues.
Let me just say, I don't know if you were like, what's your favorite sports movie of all time? If I would say Varsity Blues, but it's in the top 5. And it's one of those movies, I don't even know. If you ask me what is the best football movie, like what's the best made, I think Friday Night Lights is an incredibly made movie. But Varsity Blues has a combination of like a high school movie. I like high school movies, a guilty pleasure. It's like a high school movie filtered through football with like rebelling against a coach. The football action, I think, is pretty good. It's not great, but like there's enough, like they show some big hits. They throw a good ball, like the spiral's actually moving correctly. It has a great speech where Moxon's telling Bud Kilmer to hit the bricks. John Voight's in it being an asshole, which
always,
seems to make sense. So it's just like, I think it's great. I think it's a great watch. It's such a watch where if it comes on TV, I'm like, oh, I got to watch 20 minutes of this. I love it.
They invented a formation you actually see in the NFL now, the oopty freaking oop, whether they make fun of there. You actually see teams do a 4x set in the NFL now. It's actually a real thing.
Yeah, they made a big deal of it when they're like, we're going to go put 4 guys out. And they're like, they have the guys counting. They're like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Is that even
no huddle? Which I guess at the time, like, going to high school running a no huddle offense in like the early 2000s probably wasn't that common, but
correct. It was probably a little more risque in the moment, but
when it came, I mean, that was like around the time where, I'm in the Northeast, like I'm in Massachusetts. The whole thing was like, it came about of like, oh, football in Texas is crazy. Like football is like huge. Like Friday Night Lights came out. And then this movie came out. So this was like in this thing of like, wow, this is like big time high school football. Obviously, there's some goofy shit in this movie, but that's kind of its charm for me.
Yeah, I respect it. And my number one is the Sandlot. It's everything, s'mores, Wendy peppercorn, pickling the beast. Like it's just it's one that hit right at the right time for me, and I think is one that does still stand up pretty well. Like even for being like a kid's movie, it still is like everyone can relate to so many of those experiences growing up as a kid and friendship and all the different pieces of it, that it really holds up pretty well to me. And it's still one of my favorite movies, regardless sports or anything, just one that I love and always warms my heart to be able to watch.
One of my favorite things, I catch myself doing it to this day, is where I'll go on YouTube and I'll be working on things. I'm not even watching it because I can see it playing out in my head. I just need to hear the audio. I'll have my earbuds in and I'm doing dishes or something. And I'll listen to that final kind of scene where he's walking through how all of his friends kind of drifted away. And I don't know what it is for me, but that hits an emotional note there. Yeah. Even as an adult, you're like, how many people?
Yeah. That's like the, like some of those voiceovers on like the Wonder Years or the end of Stand By Me or something. It's like that always gets you. Like you can feel yourself getting older and you're like, we like these movies, I think, because it reminds us of, when we were young and playing and you have this tight knit group of friends and you're like, damn, man, what Whereas like it's just like it hits you, but it's good. I like that feeling, but it's like the realization and the acknowledgement of just the passing of time. But I think it's good. I like when they have stuff like that.
So I of course this went significantly longer than I planned on it going, as I knew that it would. I appreciate you guys very, very much. This was a ton of fun. I love everything that you guys brought to this discussion. It was exactly what I was hoping for, to be able to go through some of our favorite sports movies. So Drew, let the people know where they can find you and what you have coming on.
Twitter at Rockpile Report, all your major podcatching apps. We have a whole summer full of absurd content. We're going to drag Greg onto our show a couple times and see if I can't make him blow his stack. For some reason, I'm one of the only people who I heard this from a family member of his, said he'd never heard Greg raise his voice in anger before until I played it for him on my podcast. He goes, "What did you do to get under his skin like that?" I told him, "Listen,
hard.
It's a gift, baby. It's a gift."
So, Mike, let people know where they could find you, and maybe a sneak preview. What's something you got coming up that you're working on?
You can find me on Twitter at @Camerlengo. I should have put my name like you guys did. At the last second, I tried to change it. And I don't know what I'm doing. You can go to, I have a bunch of videos at 60secondclassics.com. That's kind of where I keep all my stuff.
You guys will see that in the show description here. Make sure you check it out. There are some doozies, actually multiple in the countdown that we had here tonight are on there, and some of the best ones. But you can check out an awful lot that's on there. It's incredibly enjoyable.
Thank you. Yeah, I know I'm banking everything on a website. I know people don't go to websites anymore, but please visit 60secondclassics.com. Nothing particular in the books, just gonna go to the batting cages and maybe make some content out of that. So
I appreciate it. Thank you both for your time tonight. This is a ton of fun. And now back to the rest of the show. So obviously an awful lot of fun there tonight. We had a great time being able to go through and talk. Went a little bit over budget. I think that was a touch more time than we had hoped to have taken. But there's a couple more things we wanted to go through here tonight to be able to, before we close it out. As we started last week, we had our fantastic poll because we have to know each week who in society that we see and that we go around is truly the one that gets under our skin the most and can be dubbed this week's.
She is the worst. She's the worst person in the world.
So last week, obviously, we had our new champion of doesn't use the turn signal, or that talks on speakerphone, going up against doesn't use the turn signal guy. And we have a new champion this week, doesn't use turn signal, took them down in a close vote. It actually talks on speakerphone was winning for a sizable portion of this. And late, we had doesn't use turn signal person take over the lead. A couple more really good suggestions. One from Jason Thurston, my driving pet peeve up there with one here that grizzers me. Grizzers is a fantastic word, by the way. Good job, Jason. That's a really strong word usage. Is when someone tries to jump in as a second car in the merge. You have to respect the zipper. Of course, you have to respect the zipper. It's one at a time. That we have a social contract there. Let's not get ridiculous here. Next, a couple good ones here from Meg. My dream come true would magically be being able to jump out of my car, reach into their car, snap off the turn signal wand to beat them with her bare hands and smack them repeatedly with it. Just doesn't understand. Like, how is that not just a default function? Like, you signal your turn every single time, just like you put on your seatbelt. Like, it's crazy that that's not just standard procedure. And then, ultimately here, Chris Jenke, I'd like to officially nominate people who don't say thank you when they hold the door for them. Yeah, like that's what kind of monster are you? It's like not giving the wave when somebody lets you in line. But our new contender for next week to take on doesn't use turn signal. Our man Tyrone Billums, one of our favorite people over at Cover One, Eric Smeal, one of our original biggest fans and who's there with us all the time. People who are driving slow, but then speed up when you go to pass them. They're not paying attention to the fact that they're not going the proper speed, normally in the turning lane or in the passing lane. But then when they notice you going to pass them, they then speed up. It's just the worst person. It's just terrible. I think it's going to be a real contender. I'm curious to see if they can take down doesn't use turn signal guys. So next week, it will be no turn signal person against the person who are driving slowly, but then speed up when you go to pass them. And it is a little bit odd. We have quite a few nominations from the driving realm. That seems to be where a lot of the worst people show themselves. So we'll see where that goes to be able to take things down as they go. But always a lot of fun to be able to go through there. We talked last week before we get into our last segment here. We wanted to reward people that were giving us the best reviews and the most comical reviews, and we did get a couple. There was actually some very kind ones. Trimbalizer had a very, very nice one. Year over year, Greg has brought fantastic content to the Cover One Network, and his latest solo show is no exception. This is a dude who can go toe-to-toe with the best in the sports media business, and you, the listener, come away smarter in the process. Make sure to go like, subscribe, and listen. I feel like I owe him money for writing that, but that's not funny. I felt like that was one that like a family member wrote for me. Maybe it is. If you did, thank you. That was great. But the one that really got me was one that someone posted that was the best Greg-based sports podcast by far. I shared it with my friend Greg Rosenthal, who works for the NFL Network. I told him to suck it. Obviously, I have now taken over as the best Greg-based sports podcast out there by far. Bob Wayington, let us know that's now my title to be declared. So appreciate you, Bob. It's very kind to you. But if anyone else can go out there, take a minute. This is how these new shows work nowadays. The only way to let other people know about it is to press the like button, to go out there if you're listening on Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, YouTube, Facebook. Give a like, give a rating, give a review. Go and just write a couple words real quick. Give us 5 stars to be able to put a review out there. We appreciate it, and we will bring up and share the most entertaining reviews. Have some fun with it. You can say ridiculous things, but just give us the review, put the comments in there. It really goes a long way to be able to help us. We appreciate you very, very much. And now, one of our final segments that we're going to be going through here is with a good friend of mine, someone who's been, someone I've known for a long, long time. My former college roommate, one of my best friends around, Rich Haynes, who has really taken a passion for sports gambling for a while and turned it into a profitable enterprise here. Has been doing very well since Ohio is now legalized sports gambling. Has done a really, really nice job. So we're going to welcome Rich on here for some shows coming up here as we go. We'll have him on maybe every week, maybe every other week. We're going to go through and be able to share some of his, different takes, how he puts it together. Has a really cool model for how we build some of the parlays, and he shares some of that information with us here. Welcome to our gambling segment today, and to the show for the first time, Rich Haynes. Rich, welcome aboard.
What is up, Greg? I'm excited to jump on and talk about my Uncle Dickie's average size parlays. But, I don't know. Gambling's something that I've been doing for a while, and it's been legal in Ohio now since January 1st. So I've really jumped in, kind of with both feet, if you will, and been able to do some analysis and have been doing really well since January 1st. I'm excited to be able to do it on the up and up legally here now.
don't need to text bookies or anything.
Yeah, like no. I mean, I obviously never did that, Greg.
But in theory, if someone had have been,
right. So, and I obviously wore my sports coat and hoodie for you today to fit in with the dress code. So
looking
I
good.
hope that's
up to code and everything. As the slobs like Drew in the last segment. You can't, really stepping it up here. So we're gonna jump right into it. We're gonna talk about a couple of the fun parlays that we saw. I talked earlier about Mac McClung in the All-Star game. So we found a couple crazy parlays people ran with, and then I'd like for you to explain to some of the folks about how you've been profitable so far in building some of your parlays. I've been tailing you on some of them and using some of them recently. I wish I had started right off the bat from the beginning of the year. I'd be doing much better than I am so far. But let's dive right in, take a look at a couple of these crazy ones that are out there. One, this guy back in August, he put in a 3-leg parlay with Will Zalatoris to win the FedEx St. Jude Championship, the Celtics to win the NBA Finals, and Patrick Mahomes to be the AP MVP of the season. He's hit 2 of them. So for $75, he could cash out right now for $12,000. But if he lets it ride, it's $70,000. Obviously, he could take a little bit of that $12,000 and still bet on the Celtics, but there's no way he'd get an extra $58,000 out of it. I can't lie. I'd be really hard pressed not to take the 12 grand, but 70 grand sounds pretty good.
Yeah. And so, obviously with my approach, I'm definitely taking the $12,000 because things go wrong. And I have a quick story. A neighbor of mine, his friend had a 24-leg NBA parlay. It was I think he only bet like $10. He had a cash out option for around $5,000, and then I think a total win for about $16,000. And he needed 20 points out of Pascal Siakam, and that was the last leg. I believe it was like a West Coast game even, so it was like, he was just kind of watching that and said, you know what, I'm just going to roll with it. And unfortunately, Mr. Siakam came up a little short on those 20 points, and he is just kicking himself. So
$10 could have been $5,000, but it's enticing to go for 16. I get it.
Yeah, it is, and obviously it kind of depends on where you're at from your own bankroll perspective too. Like, hey, can you risk it, or does that $12,000 really matter to you from a life difference perspective? But for me, I can do quite a few Uncle Dickie's average size parlays with $12,000, so I'm gonna cash out on that one.
Yeah, and you can even do some fun stuff. Like on a serious note, you could take the $12,000, you could put $10,000 in your pocket, and then build yourself some of the parlays of things that would need to happen for the Celtics to win the title, like rolling over their win total for the season, rolling over their winning odds in each round of the playoffs for each series, and let that just keep compounding to the end, and get yourself back a chunk of money if you still want to feel like you have action in on it. But that's a little crazy. So this next one was another one that maybe would have been fun if we could have found it. All-Star games are dumb, but it's still money. That 21-1 odds that someone scores 50 points in the All-Star game. Jason Tatum set the All-Star game record, I think, with 54, it might have been. So this guy won $3,300 because Jason Tatum popped for 50 points.
Yeah, I actually like this one, and I wish I would have seen it, before the All-Star game. I didn't take a lot of All-Star game props. I did hit on Damian Lillard winning the 3-point contest. Nice. I had Buddy Hield and Dame in that one, and they were both, I think Damian was, plus 350. Buddy Hield was somewhere around plus 400, if I remember correctly. So, I profited off of that, taking Dame and him hitting. But, the actual All-Star game, that's such a who knows, right? Who knows what's going to happen in that. However, the format that it's in today and the fact that these guys literally play zero defense, I actually kind of like this one. And I may have, if I saw it before the game, I may have put a little bit down on it to try to hit that, because I think plus 2,100 odds is not bad, again, considering what those guys do in today's All-Star game.
Yeah, I would guess that might be a little lower in the future. This one on the All-Star game, a 5-leg parlay. And this one you got to take with a little grain of salt. It's someone willing to put $1,200 on 5-leg All-Star game parlays. So this person's got a little bit of money to throw around, but set it up where if Joel Embiid, Jason Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, Tyrese Halliburton, and Damian Lillard all went over their score in the All-Star game, he could turn that into $36,000. And for anyone who didn't watch, Damian Lillard hit the game-ending 3 in the new format to give him 26. So before that shot, he had 23, and he was a half point short. So if anyone else scored and ends the game, he would have lost this, but he hit it to win $36,000. That was a nice one.
Yeah, that's a huge one. Even if you look at the odds on that, the one I would have been actually most concerned about was an Embiid, just because, again, All-Star game is not usually a big man's game, so like him getting the volume to get over 28, but that was not a bad stab in the dark there, and I'm happy that gentleman got lucky on the last shot of the game.
Yeah, gutsy. So here we'll dip into some of your work that you had recently. First, look at all this green on this calendar; it's very nice. This is a site that Rich actually uses and turned me on to. That's a really nice way, especially if you're in states that now have multiple books and you use FanDuel and you use DraftKings and you use BetMGM and you use all the other sites that are out there. This actually can pull all your picks together and be able to show them all in one spot. So it's kind of a handy tool to keep track of things if you're playing on different sites. But here it tracks your ones for each day, and each of these show how profitable Rich has been in each of those days. So explain a little bit about what you use Pikkit for and how you've become a fan of it.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. And I think one of the things that if you're going to be a little bit more serious about sports gambling or sports betting is you need to play multiple books. You need to go out there and try to find lines that are the most advantageous towards you. So, just playing solely on DraftKings because maybe that's where your rewards are, or just from a simplicity sake, not that you can't do it and it can be entertainment for you, but you're going to pass up on some opportunities to potentially get the best line. So this site, definitely lets you do that. It's almost like Twitter for sports betting, so you don't have to worry about other people tweeting about whatever they're tweeting about. So you're just going to look at people's picks and their analysis. And that's one thing I certainly also advise is, if the people that are just putting out there, hey, pay me for my picks, they're usually going to scam you. That is not, they're not doing the analysis. They are just trying to get your money for the signups. It's the people that are going to throw their analysis out there, their win-loss record out there, and just say, hey, here's the picks. I'm just trying to, profit and have everybody else profit. Grabbing different people's opinions and then formulating how you want to approach it, I think is a great way to do it. I tail other people's picks too, right? That I think is going to have good analysis. There's nothing wrong with that. Use the information at your fingertips to give you the best opportunity to profit. And obviously I've done that there in January and February. So, units, on the bottom of that, it was talking about units for a minute, 47 units in January, 10 units in February. From a unit perspective, if you're not familiar with gambling, you want to look at what is your average bet. Is it $25? Is it $50? Is it $100? Is it $1,000? So when you look at something in a unit basis, then it kind of puts everybody on that level playing field as far as, how they're doing profitability wise. So that's why.
Yeah, a $10 better and a $1,000 better can have the same logic, because, hey, my $10 unit and your $1,000 unit, of course, will be differently. But if that's the way you play, you can see that as how many of your $10 units you would put on it, or your $100.
Yeah. And I certainly bet a lot of parlays. That's my thing. So, hitting 37% in January, 44% in February. If you just think about a normal 2-leg parlay, your odds are, 3-1 against you, or hitting it about 25% of the time. So I've done pretty well by building these average size parlays. And this was my night last night. So this was literally last night's bet schedule. So I won't, go into too much detail, but hit a couple nice ones. The Cavs one I liked a lot, plus 154, 4-legger. Jared Allen, over 11.5 points there. Michael Porter over 12.5. Donovan Mitchell, which was the only one that was I was sweating a little bit, 3 board. And then Jokic, the 18 points there, but Mitch got that rebound for me. And I needed to put, something like that in this parlay to kind of get the plus 154. You can't just take everything at plus, minus 500 odds. That's gonna not exactly get you where you want to be. Because every time I build a parlay, I want it to be around even money, or hopefully a little bit, from a plus 100 to plus 200, dollar range. Because for me, that's where I'm finding it profitable, when you're able to lower some of these individual player props when you're using different alt stats, whether it's on DraftKings or FanDuel or whatever.
And you see some of them here are very likely. Even the basketball one, it was 3 very likely plays. You need all 3 of them to hit. So in this one, it's the only one you lost last night, but it's because one game Corpus Christi lost 84-80, but you have 3 very high likelihood ones where you wouldn't win much betting on them individually, but if you put them together, you can turn that into a pretty clean odds to be able to win.
And too, last night you can see I only missed 1, right? That's great night last night. The night before that, I missed quite a bit. So if you're trying to think, well, why didn't you just take all these kind of straight? You only would have lost 1 bet. Long run, you're going to get killed that way, because you're taking all these heavy favorites. You're not going to make money. You're not going to be profitable. You're going to get killed that way.
Yeah. So here, you could talk about a couple for tonight.
Yeah. So, on the left, again, you can follow me on Pikkit at Richens13, also on Twitter, Burn River Sports. But honestly, Pickett's the way to go. Because I'll put analysis out there like on the left-hand side. This was a play from earlier this week. It was 3 days ago, where I'll take a look at, from a hockey perspective, and I do this in the NBA as well, but from a hockey perspective, shots on goal statistics. So which teams out there are giving up the most shots on goal to a particular position? I'll then look at rest for each team. Okay, what teams are coming off back-to-backs? Which teams have, more rest? What's the goaltender situation look like? Even though I don't usually bet, points, I still think that matters a little bit. So I'll kind of look into that. I'll look at home away records, and then I'll look to try to do a combination of shots on goal and or money line to get 2 or 3 legs together to put myself in the best position to, again, hit one of those average size parlays, the negative 100 to maybe plus 200 range. So the one I had a couple days ago, Carolina money line, really love that. I like Aho as well as Necas in this one. I actually picked the wrong one here, but again, I'm putting out the information to the group. I picked Necas the center. He missed his shots on goal by 1. Aho hit pretty easily on shots on goal. So you're able to look at this information and make the choice that you feel you're most comfortable with. This one, I took the higher odds, but I could have easily just taken Aho and hit this one for plus 125.
Nice.
So tonight, I know we're on tonight here on this show about 9 o'clock. So tonight we have one that tips off at 10 o'clock. Clippers and the Warriors. So a kind of a 2-game, single game parlay. You can build this on FanDuel. That's what you see on the screen. So the Clippers and Warriors, heavy favorites. Warriors are, I think, minus 500. Clippers are about 260, something like that. Warriors about 83% implied odds winner. Clippers 72%. Clippers are playing the Kings at home, coming off of a back-to-back by the Kings last night. So in my opinion, those two are pretty good locks. But to get my odds down to a positive situation, I want to look at two player props. Jordan Poole, 2 threes. He's done that 8 of the last 10 games. So I threw that one in there. Okay. Paul George, and the one on the left, or the middle of this particular screen here, 15 points. He's done that 10 out of his last 10 games. Or if you want to try to get a little better odds, go from the minus 109 at the bottom of that middle play to the plus 149 on the right, you can go ahead and do 20 points. Now, Paul George has done that 7 of his last 10 games. So it's up to you, what kind of risk that you want to put in there. I'm probably going to hammer the middle one because I like a little risk. So I'm probably going to hammer that one for a few units at negative 109. But certainly, I think Paul George, hitting that 20.7 out of the last 10 games and getting that up to plus 149 is a good position to put yourself in a range to hit this one from some profits tonight.
Nice. I like it a lot. It's a lot of fun. It shows kind of the way you can intelligently build some of those things. Obviously there's still a fun element to it that you're able to add a little bit of excitement and anxiety when you're watching the game. But if you take an analytical approach to it, you can actually, be able to make yourself a little bit of money too. So that's a lot of fun. Appreciate you coming on this week. And hopefully we'll have you on coming on here for some repeated segments as we go forward.
Heck yeah, make that money, everybody.
I appreciate you guys. We'll talk soon and back to the show. So obviously a lot of fun to be able to have Rich on and to be able to go through. And I actually just looked while we're going live here. The picks look pretty good right now. Paul George is off to a pretty good start. And Jordan Poole's already hit a 3. Both teams are winning. It's looking like a pretty good bet there. So hopefully we'll be able to follow him. You can find him on Pikkit. You can see it in the show description. I'll add his information there to be able to check him out. And really appreciate you guys checking us out tonight. I know there's been a lot of stuff, went a little bit longer than we expected to go. Normally each show won't go this far or go over an hour. But we appreciate everything you guys have been doing. It's been a ton of fun. Remember, give us a like, give us a rating, give us a review. It goes a long ways. It's something that really helps us with the distribution of the show and to be able to help share this with more and more people. But we appreciate everything you guys have been doing. It really truly means a lot. But ultimately, as we wrap things up here, just remember, try to find a way to be good and do good.
Ladies and gentlemen, the weekend.